Well, I couldn't let the day go by, of course, since it's June 21st. And you know my proclivity to solstices and equinoxes and various celebrations. We really lucked out this last week. We had Juneteenth on the 19th on Sunday night and got to acknowledge and celebrate Juneteenth and the Pride Sunday and the Pride Month, but particularly the Pride Parade that was happening in Portland. And now today we have the Summer Solstice, and it's easy to just let these things go by and not even notice. But I suppose partially because I spent so much time living on an island where there wasn't a lot of city light, and I had the awareness of the moon for so many years and always really liking noticing the full moon, the new moon, what happens when these things are in opposition, and just various rituals, that take place. I mean, the rituals that happen on the summer equinox all around the world. I noticed something today, surprisingly enough, on CNN that was a travel article that talked about traditions all around the world. And it had photographs of people in Sweden and people in Greece and Eastern Europe, something called Kupala Night celebrations that were popular in Poland, related to Cupid, with, men jumping over bonfires that they made. And people gather together in their groups and celebrate the solstice in whatever some of their traditional ways are. Yoga that's happening in India and China, things going on, and then of course there's Stonehenge. I saw some pictures on CNN today of Stonehenge, and this day is one of symbolic importance because it marks the longest day of the year in the northern hemisphere. And after this, the sun's going to gradually rise later and set earlier. And so in honor of the occasion, I rounded up a few poems that I could find and things that might help us get into the season of summer. But I'm going to show you this picture of Stonehenge, if I can find it easily. This picture has hundreds of people all gathered within Stonehenge, completely filling it, and going all to the outside. If you look in the picture, hundreds and hundreds of people there this morning at 5 o'clock for the sunrise, and there it is, the solstice, over that nice flat surface of the top rocks. So I thought that was pretty cool to, really realize that, it's not just pagan celebrations that happened with our past ancestors, that, things are still happening every day in many countries in whatever way they celebrated it. People camped out in front of Glastonbury Tor and, stood up there at this hillside knoll right at the rising of the sun. So welcome to the start of summer. So now slow down because we don't want to miss anything by hurrying past it. And there's really no need to, sweat even more. It's going to be, I think, something like 84 today and 90 something in a couple of days. I mean, for those of us that don't like being really hot or have issues, and I think most of us as we get older, it's a little harder to tolerate heat, but it seems to go by awfully fast. So, there's some wisdom in the summer, and it can help teach us to be fully awake and engaged and open to things that are around us, and maybe we can be outside more, whether it's going to be on populated streets or whether we can let ourselves get into nature. It's a time for relaxing, and the phrase that got immortalized one summer 250 4th of Julys ago, the pursuit of happiness. Of course, as practitioners, we have some other ideas about the pursuit of happiness, but it's an encouragement to go out and spend the day in the woods or savor the cherries. I wish I could savor the cherries on my tree right now. Not only are the crows getting at them first in the top of the tree, but we now have a resident rat outside that we have to decide what to do with, because she's eating all the cherries, she's eating the birdseed, and she's running with it under the sidewalk and probably feeding a few more mouths. So we've been having a household discussion about, we don't like killing beings, but we also do not want rats and mice running around our foundations of our house, etc., especially not stealing all the cherries. But it's time where peaches come in and watermelons, and somebody the other day made a fennel cake and lemonade, and there's outdoor performances that start happening, and even movies outside in the park. And so life is precious. And there is this argument against summertime, especially here in Portland, because it's really hot and sticky, and temperatures can flare up everywhere. It's certainly happened in many, many states nowadays, thanks to global warming and everything. And there's not enough air conditioning some places, and climate crisis, we have to have cooling centers for people that don't have air conditioning. But summer is also sort of a state of mind, that whatever we do during these few months, that summertime is in our sort of collective consciousness. I suppose partially because it's wedged between two holidays. Everything good sort of happens, magical things happen, especially for kids, between June and August. So let's make a few more new memories, and even if it's no more ambitious than to take a few naps, read outside, or sleep in a tent, or float in a pool. I guess one of my favorite poems that I brought up is asking ourselves what Mary Oliver asks herself in the last two lines of her poem, which are tacked up on many people's refrigerators and bulletin boards in the summer day. And that's, tell me, what is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life? So I'm going to read Mary Oliver's poem. Who made the world? Who made the swan and the black bear? Who made the grasshopper? This grasshopper, I mean. The one that has flung herself out of the grass, the one who is eating sugar out of my hand, who is moving her jaws back and forth instead of up and down, who is gazing around with her enormous and complicated eyes. Now she lifts her pale forearms and thoroughly washes her face. Now she snaps her wings open and floats away. I don't know exactly what a prayer is. I do know how to pay attention, how to fall down into the grass, how to kneel down into the grass, how to be idle and blessed, how to stroll through the fields, which is what I've been doing all day. Tell me, what else should I have done? Doesn't everything die at last and too soon? Tell me, what is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life? So I hope each of us can find a way somewhere to go out and maybe lay down on the grass under the shade of a tree at some park nearby, or even just in your yard. You know, life is wild, and summer's full of outdoor pleasures and feeling the sun and the wind on our arms and on our legs, and that are freshly uncovered for some people. I happen to keep mine covered, not exposing myself too much to the sun. But, you know, this is a time to have roasted vegetables and fruit that is going to dribble down our chins, to get as much as we can out of tending the garden and watching kids climb trees, and maybe even get to the beach somewhere and put your feet in the water, or eat outdoors, or walk around at dusk, and when we can still begin to have the joy of these evenings before they start getting, you know, shorter. I found another one I think I'll read. This one is called Summer Solstice by Carrie Richards. This was when the whole world measured time. This is when the light would turn around. This is where the past would come undone, and the spinning earth will mark a new beginning. Let's go back in time to when it all began, to the breaking of new dawns, where moments bright with fire would light the chanting song, where pagans worshipped sun and danced among the trees, wore strange masks of covered straw and blessed cold ash with awe. Wreaths hung upon the door against all spirits, dire, and when the winter's grasp let go, the sun reversed the pyre. This was when the whole world measured time. This is when the light would turn around, so that spring arrives and seeds will sprout and grow. O radiant sun, stretch the day. Shorten night. Return earth's darkness into light. This is where the light will turn around, and this is where the past would come undone. That's a beautiful one. Yeah, you know, in the U.S. we have these bookends, these two holidays that honor work at one end and sacrifice on the other end. Memorial Day reminds us to look back with gratitude and honor the soldiers that died in battle. And Labor Day, celebrated in May, and most other countries honors work by giving people a break from it. And the latter holiday was signed into law, I think, in the summer of 1894, which is interesting because it's also, that's like 30 years later from Juneteenth. But that bookends of those two holidays, it's like a metaphor of between sacrifice and work, and maybe because of it, we have this freedom. Summer is the season of kind of self-autonomy. And, you know, many Americans celebrate independence from the British every summer, combined with Juneteenth. So the highlight for June 19th, the marking of the effective end of slavery in the U.S., and that was in the summer of 1865. So there's also two holidays within the season that celebrate freedom, tyranny from oppression, and, you know, in local history, in Oregon's history, it's only the 50th year that they've celebrated, at least externally, Juneteenth. But it's been being celebrated for ever since 1865 in various places, of course, in Galveston, Texas, and other places where it is celebrated internally amongst families. So it's interesting now that it's been made a federal holiday. You know, there's like, I saw an apology, I think, from Walmart because they had something about, the celebration of Juneteenth, and they had cups and plates and stuff like that. And there was some protest about it, and they apologized for making it, that kind of so celebratory. So it'll be interesting to see how it unfolds over the years to be really acknowledged in the right way. So, summer's the kind of kinetic time, and there's youth and joy and activity and celebration and revolution. And I'm hoping there aren't so many more demonstrations this year. Who knows? But I'll read one more poem and then we can have some conversation, because I see Sherry, you're unmuted, and Margaret, you're unmuted. So how about, here's a short one from Carl Sandburg. Bend low again, night of summer stars. So near you are, sky of summer stars. So near, a long-arm man can pick off stars, pick off what he wants in the sky bowl. So near you are, summer stars. So near, strumming, strumming, so lazy and humming, strumming. I hope we have a chance to see some stars now. I usually notice that from about now all the way through for at least 3 or 4 solid months, maybe even 5, I can start to see the full moon in the sky in Portland. Boiling hot and clear skies. So here's one more from Emily Bronte. Moonlight, summer moonlight. 'Tis moonlight, summer moonlight, all soft and still and fair. The solemn hour of midnight breathes sweet thoughts everywhere. But most where trees are sending their breezy boughs on high, or stooping low are lending a shelter from the sky. And there in those wild bowers a lovely form is laid, green grass and dew-steeped flowers wave gently round her head. So I'll stop with that because of our time, of course. And I want to have some conversation. I know we lost Doug because he always has something at 4:30. So